Hi everyone. My tutorial today is going to be on a soft smoky eye. I did get a request comment on my last video, so I definitely want to be able to get to those requests as quickly as possible. So it's kind of fun to be able to do things right away for people who have, say, oh, do this. I want to learn how to do this. So I did get a request for that. So that's what we're going to be doing today, which is super fun. So the first thing that I want to talk about before we get into the actual eyeshadow application is your prep. So the first thing is your tools. So what kind of tools are you using to apply your eyeshadow? So today I'm going to keep it really simple. I really want to make my videos relatable to people who may not necessarily have a ton of variety of brushes and products. So whether you have to go out and maybe purchase one or two things versus having to, be kind of caught up in the fact that I'm going to use 16 different brushes that you may not have one or any of. So the look today I'm going to be creating, I'm going to do it with 3 brushes. So I'm going to be doing it with 2 blending brushes. So these are my blending brushes. And you can see that the blending brush is a little bit taller. The bristles are still dense, so they're still fairly tight together, but it's fluffy. And this is really going to allow us to blend the product into our eyelid so that we have a really nice soft application of product on our eyes. The next brush I'm going to be using is this eyeshadow brush. So it's just a basic flat eyeshadow brush. There's so many different varieties of your typical eyeshadow brush. There's another one here. It's again like a very typical, comes in a kit eyeshadow brush, and you can use something like this too. I like this one because it's a little bit more flat versus this one is a little bit fluffier, but at the end of the day they're both doing the same thing, so it doesn't really matter. So just the 3. So once you have the brushes that you need to apply your eyeshadow, we're going to be talking about your prep. So the second part of your prep is your eyeshadow primer. The eyeshadow primer I'm going to be using today is the Urban Decay Eyeshadow Primer Potion in Original. Eyeshadow primer is really important. I know that some people say, oh, well, I use my foundation as my primer, or I don't need a primer. I don't like primers. The thing that really makes primers for your eyelids specific or special is that they are formulated specific for your eye area. They're helping to really do 3 main things that your foundation doesn't do. So the first is that it's really helping to create an even complexion to your eyelid that is going to allow your shadow to be its truest color. So when you pick up that palette of neutrals or you pick up that palette of really bright, vibrant colors, when you take the product from that palette and put it onto your eyelid, that it's going to be as true to the palette color as possible. So whether it be a very vibrant color or whether it be a very neutral color, it helps the shadow stay that true to the trueness of the color that you're looking at. Next is that it's going to help to minimize any moving or shifting. So what you'll notice sometimes is that your eyelids get oily throughout the day, which is very normal and natural. And what happens is any eyeshadow that we put on our eyelid starts to crease in the crease of our eyelid. So any shadow that you have here on the ball of your eye, it will disappear and it will start to migrate and stay on the crease of your eyelid, which doesn't really look very nice. And also it's super annoying to have to worry about your eyeshadow disappearing by lunchtime and having to reapply your eyeshadow. Not a whole lot of people bring eyeshadow products with them to work or whatever, so having to do that is just not ideal for most people. So using an eyeshadow primer is really going to help to keep your eyeshadow in place, have it last that much longer, so all day, without it moving or shifting. So the one that I use is the Urban Decay eyeshadow primer potion. Now, the great thing about this is that it is a completely neutral color, so anybody of any skin tone can use this primer, which is fantastic. If you have a preference of the color of your primer, Urban Decay does sell a variety of different tones. So they have one that's a little bit more like peachy. They have one that's a really nice chocolatey color. So for a darker skin tone, you can get something that is more within your tone gradient, which is great. But if you're super basic, you don't want to kind of fiddle with things, then the original is fantastic. So I'm going to go ahead and apply this to my eyelid. Now, I do have a little bit of mascara and eyeliner on because I did this video before and for some reason it didn't load properly. So I had to take my makeup off, and then now we're doing it again, which is fine. Second time's a charm, but I didn't want to take my mascara off. So we're gonna work with it. So you can see I've applied the product to my eyelids. You can see it, but then we're gonna take our clean fingers, and we're just gonna blend it in. So blending it in is just allowing you to not be able to see the actual product. It's not taking it off your eyelid. All right, fantastic. Okay, so we're going to be using two different eyeshadow palettes today. So because the request was a simple, subtle smoky eye, I'm going to be using two Urban Decay palettes. So the first one is the Naked Basics 1 palette. Now, I don't believe this palette is sold anymore. I do believe it is discontinued, but they do have a Naked Basics 2, which is very similar to this one. The tones are just a little bit more gray, but still something that most people can use and are comfortable using. The great thing about this palette is that it is mostly matte, meaning that there's no undertones to it, there's no shimmer or shine to it. The first color here is called Venus. This color here is called Venus, and it does have a little bit of a shimmer to it, but nothing over the top. So this palette is great for people who are looking for that, like we're doing, a very basic eye, something that they can wear every single day without any of that shimmer or shine. Somebody with more of a mature skin who wants to be able to use shadows without accentuating any of those finer lines, using matte colors are really going to allow you to achieve those looks that you're wanting to achieve without like I said, accentuating those finer lines. And it's also great because they're really easy to use. So what you'll find is that the tips that I'm going to use in this tutorial, you can apply to any colors that you want ever to create a smoky eye. This is just going to allow you to do more of that subtle basic smoky eye, but you can use the same tips to apply darker, deeper, bolder colors for sure. So the first thing I'm going to do, the other palette, I'm going to show you the other palette too. So that's the first palette we're going to use, basic matte colors. Then we're going to use the Aphrodisiac palette from Urban Decay, and you'll see the colors are a lot different. You have your matte basics. You have three really nice shimmery, shiny tones. This one here is kind of like a rose gold. You have your plum and then a brown. And then the last color here is like a really nice, deep chocolatey color. Nice because it's not black. So I'll definitely show you how to incorporate these. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our first fluffy brush, our first blending brush, and we're going to dip it into this color here called Faint. And when I dip it, I'm just dipping the tip. Oh, you can't see that. Just the tip like this. And I'm just gonna tap off any excess product so that we don't have too much product applied. Now, before I apply, one thing too is I know there's this big question of when do I put my eyeshadow on? Do I put it on before or after my foundation? So personally, I like to put my eyeshadow on before I do my face. Reason for that is because any eyeshadow that falls down onto your face when you're applying it, which pretty much any eyeshadow you put on, you're going to have a little bit of fallout. It's almost impossible to not have fallout. So if you're doing your eyeshadow and you have any fallout and you don't have any other makeup on, you can just go ahead, take a wipe and wipe it away, and then go and put your foundation on. It just helps with time, and it helps to not have to redo anything. I do have my makeup on now because I had things to do this morning before I did this video. So I do have my foundation, my brows are obviously done. I do have some contour and highlight and blush. Pretty much your basic 5-minute face is what I did this morning. So doing my eyes now, I will have a little bit of fallout. I'm not going to go crazy with reapplying and all that for time's sake, but for me, I like doing my eyes first. So if you've done one or the other and you have a preference, then just do whatever you prefer. So now we're going to get into the actual application. So with your eye, if you feel right underneath your bone here, this is your eyeball socket. And this is the perfect guide for you when it comes to applying shadows to create contour in your eyes. So ideally, we're going to create a gradient when it comes to your smoky eye. So, which means we're going to go from light in the corner to darker on the outside. We're going to bring the darkness a little bit under the eye just to create a really nice even shadow application, but nothing too crazy. This look is really for somebody who wants to learn how to apply a shadow, or somebody who wants to learn to apply shadow where they can wear it to work and feel comfortable and confident and like they've done a little bit extra without feeling like they have like tons of makeup on. So now that I have my product on my brush, what I'm going to do is I'm going to dab the product into the outside of my eye, so just here, and then we're going to blend it in to the crease. And you can see already that the product is going right in underneath the crease of my eyeball. And the main thing too is that you don't want to go too far in, because then that's going to create too much depth on the inside of the eye. We want to create nice wide open eyes. So we're going to do that by keeping that darker shade no further than just the center of the eye here. So when you're applying your shadow, you're just going to be using really small circular motions with your brush. You can also go like back and forth like that, totally fine. And when you're applying your shadow, you want to make sure that you're not raising your eyebrows, because when you raise your eyebrows too much, you'll find that, first of all, you will get a little bit of wrinkling going on in your forehead, but then also you're actually stretching your eyelid higher than it naturally sits. So you want to kind of work with how your face is when you're just having a normal face, not when you're like surprised or doing facial expressions. So generally I tend to look down when I'm applying my makeup, because in that way my eyes will sit the way that they normally do without having to feel like I need to raise my eyebrows. Okay, so we can see that that's applied great in underneath the crease area. Perfect. So now we're going to do that with the other side. So same thing, just dabbing the tip. Anything that's sitting on the top of our brush, we're just gonna dab it off. I like to dab it with my finger, with my nail, just tapping the brush like this. Generally, I don't blow on the brush. I know some people have a tendency to blow on it. really that's kind of spitting on your brush, and I don't want to put spit on my eyebrow, on my eyelid. Um, I know that's a little bit like extreme, but it's reality. That's what happens when you blow. Um, I prefer to just tap. You can tap it with your finger, you can tap it on the side of the table or whatnot. So we're just gonna go in on the other side. The other thing too is when you're holding your brush, you want to make sure you're holding it kind of like you hold it, kind of like you would hold a pen. So when you're holding a pen, generally you don't hold the pen at the very top because you don't have as much control. You get really light, kind of feathery writing. Same kind of deal. If you're looking for a really, really light application, you would hold it further away. If you want to have a little bit more control, you want to hold it in the middle or closer to the base of the brush, because that's going to give you more control. And sometimes I'll use my pinky as like leverage to help so that I'm not like my whole hand isn't on my face to balance. If you find that you don't need anything to balance, then that's great too. But using your pinky sometimes just, oops, just helps. So just make sure you're not pressing too hard. This ultimately shouldn't hurt in any sort of way. I know that sounds silly, but you never know. People who are just starting out, how it should feel. It shouldn't feel harsh or rough. It should just feel like feathery. But with that being said, you want to make sure that you're getting the product on there. So you want to make sure that you're kind of pressing it in, not like pressing hard, especially because your eye is very delicate. But you know, your brush has to be on your eye there. Okay, perfect. Now I'm going to take my flat brush, this guy here, and I'm going to dip it into WOS. It's this third color here. It is a matte neutral color, and we're gonna apply it to the whole base of the brush. You can see it on my brush here. I'm gonna tap off any excess. You may be able to see a little bit of that shadow that just kind of flew off. That's totally fine. Less is more. So if you feel like you need to go back in to reapply product, definitely do that versus putting too much product on your eye and then feeling like now you need to take it off. So with the product that I've just put on my brush, I'm gonna apply it to the center, from the inner corner to the center of my eye. And what this is going to do is it's just going to help to further create that gradient of color. So working from light to dark. And then that color that we put in the crease is just going to blend everything nicely together. And you really want to try and master blending, because the biggest thing when it comes to using multiple shades of shadow is that you want to try and minimize when you can see a color start and stop. You can tell that I have two colors on here, but you can't necessarily see that one is starting and one is stopping. They've kind of meshed together because we're using those blending techniques. All right, I'm going to go in and do the other side. And the other thing too is I do tend to press the product into my eye. I don't generally sweep, because when you sweep the product, you kind of flick the eyeshadow all over, versus just using really nice light tapping motions. It gives you that application without getting the shadow all over the place. So that will also help minimize any fallout of product. Okay, so at this point, now that we've used the two main colors in terms of a light and a dark, if you're comfortable with this and you don't want to put anything else on, you're like, this is as basic as I want to be. I don't want to put anything else on because it's going to be way too much product for me. That's totally cool. So at this point, I would take my clean blending brush, and you can either take your WOS, so the same color you put on your eyelid, or you can take something that has a little bit more shimmer to it. So I'm going to take the Venus, which has a little bit of shine to it. I'm going to dab my blending brush in there so that I'm kind of coating the sides, versus when we were using the really dark color, we only did the tip, okay? I'm going to tap that off, and what we want to do is we want to minimize being able to see where the shade in our crease starts and stops, so we want to blend it into underneath our brow. So you're just going to really, really lightly blend under the brow, and then on the side, you're just very, very lightly hitting that darker shade. You're not covering it. And the color that I used has a little bit of a shimmer, so it's giving you just a little bit of extra zhuzh without, being over the top. But you can see how it creates a really nice gradient from your brow bone into your crease. And I'll do the other side. So we're going just underneath here. You can bring it just down a little bit if you want. And if you find that you can really see it on the inside, you just kind of want to blend it in with your finger or something, because you don't want to really see a whole lot of like shimmer right here on your eye. So there you go. That's your like super, super basic smoky eye. At this point, if you're done, you can be done. You can add your mascara, you can put some liner on, and you're on your way. For anybody who wants to kind of amplify this a little bit, add a little bit of extra color, or use more than just 2 colors, I'm going to do that with the Aphrodisiac palette that I first showed you. So one of the things I find, one of the colors that I find I love to add to a smoky eye, whether I'm doing a intense smoky eye or a subtle smoky eye, is a plum color. And the reason for that is because I find the plum color really helps to accentuate the eyes, no matter what eye color you have. So whether you have blue, brown, hazel, I find it really pulls the color from the eye to enhance it, even if you're doing it in a really subtle way. So I'm going to take my initial blending brush, the one I use with the brown, and what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to add this color here, Addict, which is a really pretty plum color. I'm going to add that to my crease. So I'm really, really gently dabbing just the top of my brush in. I'm going to tap any extra product off, and then I'm going to go in the crease really, really lightly. And like I said, the nice thing with knowing and understanding these tips is that you really can use these tips with any colors. So instead of using a plum, maybe you want to use something with a little bit more of like a burnt kind of tone to it. So like a burnt orange or more of a browny taupey color. You definitely can do that too. The other thing too is if you put color on and you're like, oh my gosh, I just put way too much product on my eyelid. Don't freak out, it's totally fine. There's a couple things that you can do. If you put too much product on the outside of your eye and you're like, wow, I do not want shadow all the way out here, use your finger, just wipe it away. If you put eyeshadow too far up or your eyeshadow is too dark and you want to get rid of it, then take your flat brush with that neutral tone that's like a matte neutral tone, and put it right over top, and that will help neutralize it versus having to like take it all off. Okay? All right, we're gonna go in on the other side. So can you tell the difference? I put a teeny tiny bit of that plum color on this eye here versus this one is just our initial smoky. And you can see the difference without it being a crazy difference. So like I said, you can kind of incorporate colors really, really subtly and still have that comfortable everyday look that you can, wear out, wear to the office, whatever it is that you want to wear this. So again, I'm just using that really nice soft plum color. I'm just applying it right into the crease of my eye. So one of the things too is if you find that you have a little bit more of a hooded eyelid. So a hooded eyelid is the type of eyelid where you put eyeshadow on and then you open your eyes and you lose your eyes. You lose your eyes. You lose your eyelid because this part of your eye kind of droops down a little bit, and your eyelids are hidden by it when you open your eyes. It generally happens with more of a mature skin person, but some people's eyes are just like that, and there's nothing wrong with it. It is what it is. So it's about learning to work with what you have. So when you're applying this contour color with a hooded eyelid, you're just gonna want to apply it a little bit higher. It's gonna feel funny when you're putting it on because you're like, I'm pretty sure I'm not on my eyelid. But if you're putting it up here versus right under that bone, so if you feel where that bone is, you're gonna wanna put it just above where that bone is. And when you open your eyes, you're gonna be able to see that product with your eyes open, which is the most important thing, right? What we're trying to achieve. And then you want to put those lighter colors on your eyelid so that way when you're opening your eyes, you can still see some of that brightness, and then the colors that are on the outside are creating that emphasis, so you're still getting the impact of doing a smoky eye like this, even if you have an eye that you can't see all the colors that you've applied. So okay, perfect. So now that I have that plum on both of my eyelids, you can see that my eyes pop a little bit more, even though I only have those 3 colors on. So there's really no right or wrong time to apply the colors. I like to start with my darker colors first and then work with my lighter colors. Some people like to apply the lighter color first and then put the darker colors on. The reason why I like to start with the darker color first is because I find I can blend really, really well with the lighter shades. So if I've made a mistake with my darker colors or anything like that, the lighter colors will help to correct anything. All right, now I'm gonna go in with my flat brush again, and we're gonna apply, it's called Night Fever, and it's this really nice rose gold toned shimmer. And I like it because it can add a little bit of pizzazz to your look, again, without it being like looking like you're going to a club or a party or anything. It can be very, very subtle. So I'm just putting it like this, the flat part of my brush, I'm just dabbing it in. Now with shimmers, you definitely want to tap because you're gonna get some fallout with this. The other thing you can do, if you want it to be a little bit more intense, is you can apply with your finger. I find sometimes applying a shimmery color with my finger just gives a little bit extra intensity, and you have minimal fallout as well. But for the sake of using brushes, we're gonna use a brush today. So where we're gonna apply it is, you can see this darker color here, and you can see that the lighter color comes in on the side here. And we're gonna apply our shimmer just on this area right here. And you'll see when I put it on, you'll be able to see where. Now, especially with shimmer, you wanna make sure that you're pressing it into the eye. You don't wanna sweep it, because if you're sweeping it, then you're gonna get the product all over your face. And if you feel like you need to go in with something with a little bit more, then go in with a little bit more. So pressing is really important. And you can see there, you can see that it has a little bit of shimmer, but it's not like a crazy shine. Ooh. Okay, so we're gonna do that same thing with the other side. Again, just putting it right on the outside and then right on the ball of the eye. All right, so now that we've done that, you can either leave it like that. I'm gonna go in again. So that initial matte color that we had on the inside of the eye, I'm gonna take the same brush. I'm gonna use the other side with the WOS just to blend that shimmer color in. And with that plum color that we used, I'm just going from the inner corner just a little bit up, not too far, not too far. And then same on the other side too, because we don't want to cover that shimmer. And again, just pressing the product in. Now, this is still fairly basic, don't have a whole lot more product on, but you can tell that my eyes are a little bit like they have a little bit more pop to them, which I really like. The last thing we're gonna do is a little bit of shadow just underneath the eye, because I find it really completes the eye, having the shadow on top and underneath. So I'm just taking some of that plum shadow just on the edge of my flat brush, and I'm just gonna bring it underneath my eye, just on my waterline. So one thing, oh, do I have it? I do. One thing, if you've already done your makeup and you do your eyeshadow and then you're like, oh my gosh, I have all this eyeshadow on my face now. If you have a fan brush like this, I don't know why this is wonky, it was sitting funny in my brush holder. The bristles on this brush are great because they flick the product, as opposed to using just like a regular fluffy brush where the the bristles will actually pull the product. Because this flicks the product, it will actually just flick that shadow off your face without having any sort of like streaks or line of the eyeshadow on your face, if that makes sense. The other thing that some people do is they actually will put this down to kind of catch anything underneath. That is a lot of work, and I pretty much never do that. But one of the ways to use this kind of brush, you can also use this kind of brush for like contouring to really get like a nice chiseled application. So there's a lot of different uses for this brush, but I do like to use it to kind of flick product off from the face area if you have any fallout. All right, so we're gonna go in on the other side. Oh, the other side. Perfect. All right, so we can add some mascara. Now, I'm not gonna do any liquid liner or liner on the top, just because I do find that it does add a lot more to the look. And if we're trying to keep it simple, then for me, this is like my simple go-to smoky eye. With that being said, if you are, and I know many people are obsessed with their liner, don't worry. You can still add liner to this if you want. So I'm gonna add a little bit of liner since I have a little bit on already, but pencil. So there's lots of different types of pencils out there. The pencil that I'm going to use today and I'm going to rave about is the Urban Decay 24/7 Glide On Eye Pencils. They are amazing. And the reason why they're so awesome is because they are waterproof. Once you put them on, you have a 2-minute dry time. So if you put it on and you want to create a really nice smoky effect with your liner, you can smudge it out and totally do that. But if you don't want to do that, you put it on, you let it sit and dry, and once it's dry, it's not going anywhere. which is fantastic. The other thing too is they have such an array of colors. It's crazy. If you want gold, silver, um, pinks, purples, blues, greens. They have so many different variations of colors that you can use. So the color I'm going to use today is the color Sabbath. It is a really nice navy blue color. Now, one of the things I find when I was working in retail, women would come in and say, "I'm looking for my black eyeliner," and I would look at them and they were a little bit more mature, or their skin was quite fair, and I'd say, are you dead set on using a black? And they were like, well, no, like I'm open to maybe doing a different color. What would you suggest? So I love recommending colors that are still giving you the depth of black without the harshness of black, because sometimes black can be really harsh on your skin tone. And also, if you have more mature skin, using black can kind of bring down bring down your eyes, if that makes sense. So using a really nice navy, using a really nice plum, a deep plum, using a really nice deep forest green color can really make your eyes pop without having the darkness of that black, if that makes sense. So I'm going to use this pencil. It is a pencil that you want to sharpen. Now, the other thing too is because the bark that's being used with these pencils is so soft, it is definitely worth the investment to buy the sharpener that is for the Urban Decay pencil. So Urban Decay has a pencil sharpener that you should buy when you're buying this pencil. It makes such a huge difference. Regular sharpeners don't sharpen these pencils the way that they're supposed to be sharpened. So with that being said, I'm going to apply this into my waterline. And I don't like to pull too much, pull my eye too much when I apply this. So I just really softly pull just so I can get to the inside of my eye. Okay. Okay. And then we're going to do it to the other side. And again, if this is a step that is an extra step for some people, then it's definitely a step that you can skip if you want. But it definitely does add. You can see the color of my eyes really pops with that navy, in addition to the plum that I put on. And it's nice because like you can do the nude basics and the browns and the neutral tones, but it's also nice to kind of add a little bit of color without it being like I'm wearing purple eyeshadow. So I think that using this technique and using these types of tones really do work for most or all skin tones and most or all eye colors as well. I do this look with people with brown eyes, and oh my gosh, their eyes are like popping out of their head in a good way. So, definitely be open to experimenting a little bit. Practice, practice, practice. It may not come easily the first time. You may have to do it just like, when the kids are sleeping, nap time or whatever, go ahead and practice. But this is something that's great that, if you're the type where you don't wear makeup ever, or you have your go-to look where you're only wearing, your eyeliner and your mascara, this is a really nice way to kind of, zhuzh your skin up a little bit for that, date that you have once a month with your husband, your significant other. If you're going on an adventure with somebody new, this is definitely something that I hope you can take away some tips and tricks and apply it to the way that you are doing your makeup. If you have any questions about any of the tools that I used, if you have questions about where you can buy stuff, definitely make a comment and I will definitely respond back to you. And if you have any requests for my next tutorial, I would love to hear your requests. Please subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much for watching. And again, I hope that this has helped somebody with their makeup techniques, and I can't wait to see you again on my next video. Have a great day, guys.